Hello, I'm making the leather straps to a rucksac basket Frances has just made. Here's the basket. I'll measure the gaps she's left me for the straps. They're a bit narrow at 16mm. I usually try to have straps at least 20mm wide, otherwise they look a bit weedy. What I'll do is waste the width where the leather goes through the basket. I use Inkscape to make up the patterns. Inkscape is free to download. I'll leave a link in the description below. I draw the outline of the leather strap and dots where I'll punch a hole for sewing the leather together. I prefer to punch out each hole in the leather rather than using a stitching iron. I prefer the look of a punched hole. In Inkscape, I can make a pattern of punched holes, then duplicate it and mirror it, knowing that the holes will all line up when I come to sew. I've also got these double holes for where I'll install a buckle. Over here, I've drawn up the shoulder straps. I'll leave a link to this Inkscape file too, so you can take a look if you're interested. The next step is to print out this pattern and cut it out. I'll then stick the paper pattern onto the pieces of leather strap I have. I use Scotch tape as it doesn't leave any residue on the leather, but any kind of sellotape would do. I'm down in the cellar now, punching out each of the holes. I use a 1.5mm punch. I place the punch on each printed circle. The board I'm punching onto is end grain beech. This seems to last quite well. I've seen some people use a polyurethane board. I tried that, but it didn't seem to last too well. The technique is to hit the punch just hard enough to go through the leather, but not so hard that it gets embedded in the wood. Sometimes I have to recalibrate how hard I'm hitting if the punch starts getting stuck in the wood. Here's the shoulder straps being punched. Back upstairs, I trim the punched leather to the shape of the pattern. The shoulder straps are lined on the inside with another piece of leather. I've cut the lining piece roughly to shape. I'll glue them together with a contact adhesive. The glue is just to hold the two bits in place for when I punch the holes. They will be sewn together, so it's not just the glue that's holding them together. Once the adhesive is set and isn't tacky, I press the two pieces together. This is the leather tag with the number on that gets sewn to the shoulder strap. I use the hole that I punched in the first piece as a guide to punch through the lower piece. Back upstairs again, I'll trim these double pieces. I run the cutter along the edge of the top piece as a guide, so the two pieces ended up the same size. Back in the cellar, I treat the edges of the leather with Toconol. This makes the edges a bit nicer. I'll burnish the edges with a little rotary tool. Time to start sewing. I made this little clamp to hold the leather so I can use both hands for sewing. I use a saddle stitch which needs 2 needles. I do a double loop round the thread to hold everything tightly in place. I find it very meditative to hand sew like this. The holes have been positioned, there's not too much thinking needed, just equal tension on each stitch. It's important to always follow the same sequence so that the stitches look the same. I push through the left hand needle first, then the right, a double loop, then pull both tight. At the end, I tie a surgeon's knot, which is like a reef knot, but you wrap round twice rather than once. Then I cut the ends short and melt the ends to keep them secure. I use a bonded nylon thread. This one is size number 10. Next, I'll fit the lower buckle strap. First fit the buckle. Then just check how it will go. I'll be stitching through 3 layers of leather here, but as all the holes are already punched, it should be easy. Here's the stitching done. A bit cramped, so I didn't manage to get any video of the stitching. I'll secure the ends. Next, the top strap. The wasting was just enough, not too much to be noticeable, but enough to easily fit through the gap Frances left me. I tried to start stitching not where the greatest strain will be. I got confused here and started in the wrong place. Starting is always the hardest, with the leather not wanting to cooperate. Once I get one stitch in, it gets easier. I've fed the shoulder straps onto the top straps, and here's the finished basket. Thanks for watching.